Welcome to Convince Me. We are back for the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. This is the Power Hour, the only NFL pregame show with all the stuff you care about, none of the stuff you don't. I am Chad Millman. Over the next 30 minutes, my Action Network buddies, Sean Koerner, Simon Hunter, Chris Raybon, are going to convince me what props, what sides, what totals I should take for the entire divisional round weekend. Plus, we have Evan Abrams with market reports, trends that make you sound smarter than your friends. We're also bringing in Dr. Nick Giffen, who's going to take us through the latest need to know from the luck rankings at the bottom half of the hour. Gilles Gallant and Brian Matthews coming at you with the touchdown show, giving you the best props for touchdowns on the board today. Before we begin, a reminder, like this video and subscribe to the Action Network YouTube page. Everything we're talking about, all the picks, all the data, all the research, available in the award-winning Action Network app. We're going game by game today. A little bit of a different roadmap for the show today. We're starting with the Texans and the Chiefs. And listen, the fastest way to tail Sean Koerner, Simon Hunter, Chris Raybon, all of our experts will be using the Quickslip links that are provided in the YouTube chat and in the episode description as the guys give out their picks. It is auto magical. I use it constantly. Sean Koerner, you're up first. Everybody get your thumbs ready.
Yeah, what's up, Chad? I know you listen to Fantasy Flex, so you heard I was talking about which Chiefs running back and which market to fade. I think I found it. I'm going with Kareem Hunt. His longest rush to be under 10.5 yards here. You can get it at -105, not the -170 prop Raybon was talking about. But I love this one because, Hunt's rush for 10 plus yards on just 5.5% of his carries this season, which is the lowest rate of all backs with at least 150 plus carries this season. Plus, this is going to be a tougher matchup for him. He runs inside at the ninth highest rate, which is the strength of this Texans run defense. The Texans allow the lowest rushing yards over expected on inside runs this year. And he cleared this number in 4 of the 8 games when Isaiah Pacheco was out, but he was averaging nearly 20 carries a game over that stretch. So eventually he's going to stumble for, 11 plus yards with that sort of volume. But ever since Pacheco's been back, he has failed to clear this in the 3 games where he had fewer than 10 carries. And his rush attempt prop for this game is around 8.5. So I'm projecting him for less than 10 carries here. It's going to be tougher for him to clear it. But I'm projecting his longest rush closer to 9 yards. And those 1.5 yards are just massive in a market like this. So I'm projecting him to stay under 10.5 here around 62% of the time.
Listen, Raybon was telling me to bet a -190 juice bet
Probably
on
worth
Fantasy
it, though.
Flex, which is, by the way, a fantastic show and a great way to get ready for the weekend's activities. All right, Kareem Hunt under 10.5, longest rush -105. That is Sean Koerner's play for this game. Simon, what do you got?
Chad, I do love the Chiefs here against the spread, but I thought I'd switch it up. Do a little something a little different. So we're going the second half under here. It's moved. It was 20.5. I'm seeing now Bet365. It is down to 19.5. Still love that number here, and it's really all about the Chiefs' identity. We've talked ad nauseum about what this Chiefs team is now, and they've switched into this new mode of a run-heavy team in the second half. And you'd say, well, is that just recent? Is that just this past season? No, it's been the last 2 years that this team has been run-dominant second half. And we already know the weather in this game, right? It's going to be freezing cold, only going to get colder as the game goes along here. And that predicates into more what I'm talking about here, that this team in the second half, the Chiefs, will just lean on that run. And we know that Andy Reid, in those last 2 years, he's been happy to call it heavy run plays. And right now, they're 28-10 in the second half against the under. That's 74% in this exact spot of taking this under. That's just too much of a good number to ignore. And the fact that, not that we doubt Houston here in this spot, but this does feel like a type of game where this is an indoor team coming outdoors, playing against a really, a great defense, in my opinion, with Spags that's only gotten healthier after their bye weeks, and they're just in a bad spot Houston-wise. So if Houston's not putting up points, and we know the Chiefs are just going to lean on their run game in the second half, this just all lines up to be a really boring, quick running clock second half type of game. So the fact that you're still getting above 17.5, I think there's great value here on this underplay in the second half, Chad.
All right, that's a lot of points that you're saying there's a delta between 19.5 and 17.5. 2 points matters a lot in those totals. Raybon, what's your play?
Let's go with CJ Stroud under 225.5 passing yards. I think that this is just a bad spot for passing yardage for Stroud for a couple of reasons. Number one, the matchup against Kansas City, they have Jalen Watson back. They play man coverage at one of the highest rates in the league. And CJ Stroud is missing his top 2, 3, and 4 receivers against man coverage, which are Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell, and even Deontay Johnson in his short time there was better than Hutchinson, Robert Woods, and all these other guys. The Chiefs took away Nico Collins in that first matchup for much of the day. Nico Collins didn't, produce up to his normal average. So you're looking at probably having to throw a lot of underneath stuff to Schultz, Joe Mixon, things like that. And then if you just look at CJ Stroud in that Kansas City game, Tank Dell went down. After he went down, just 5 of 11 for 48 yards for Stroud. Overall, he only has a little bit over 500 passing yards on his last 28 drives. 101 of them came in that Charger game on one drive. That is about the flukiest outcome that could have ever happened because he was supposed to have 0 yards on that drive because I thought he committed intentional grounding in the end zone. They didn't call it. He gets out of that. He get backed up for a penalty, throws more yards. He fumbles, picks it up, throws a 34-yard pass. They end up scoring on that drive. He throws for 101 yards. Even if you take that out, he's done absolutely nothing. Another 50 yards came on one drive against the tanking Titans, and then he got shut out by Baltimore. So I think this Houston passing game is in bad shape, and I think that's why you saw Joe Mixon mysteriously end up on the injury report. Because they just wanted to sit him out and practice because he's going to get a big workload today. I think they're going to go back to more of that frustrating, early down run stuff that they were doing early in the year because they want to shorten this game as well in the elements. And Stroud's averaging just 192 yards per game outdoors in his career compared to 275 indoors passing yardage wise.
Look, that drive against the Chargers that you're referring to at the end of the first half with the non-call on intentional grounding and then the flukish fumbled shotgun snap converting into a 34-yard first down pass saved the Texans season. It's why they're in the second round of the playoffs right now. It's why the Chargers are sitting at home. These are all fantastic. This is what it's fun that we're doing game by game and not prop by prop because the menu on this is so diverse. I love all of them. I think I'm going with CJ Stroud under his passing yards. Raybon's analysis is spot on. This could be a Joe Mixon heavy game. It's an outdoor game. It doesn't play to CJ Stroud's strengths, whereas last week, even when he was in a position for the game to play to his strengths, he still wasn't great. They have been down this year for most of the season. CJ Stroud has not been himself. I think he's overvalued here in this spot. Give me CJ Stroud under 225.5 total passing yards. All right. Detroit taking on the Washington Commanders, the cardiac Commanders. Sean Koerner, what's your play?
Yeah, I'm going with De'Ami Brown of the Commanders here to go over 33.5 receiving yards. Coming off his best game of the season. Last week, he had 5 catches, 89 yards, and a touchdown. I think he keeps that rolling here. The Commanders, they've only trailed 28% of their snaps this season, which is the 6th lowest rate. So, here as nearly double-digit dogs against the Lions, I have them expected to trail on about 54% of their snaps. So that's a massive 27% jump in expected trail time. So not only does that mean Jaden Daniels will probably have to drop back to pass at a much higher rate, it also means the Commanders may use more 3 wide receiver sets here. They use 3 wide receiver sets 10% more often when trailing. So that's going to get Brown on the field more potential targets. Plus, this is a matchup that sets up nicely for him. The Lions use man coverage at the highest rate in the league, and Brown's yards per route run jumps up from 1 yard per route run against zone to team leading 2.22 yards per route run against man. He's averaging 15.2 yards a catch against man. So, I'm projecting him closer to 37.5 yards here, but I love his upside in this matchup.
Yeah, he's been coming on strong at the end of the second half of the year, constantly getting airtime, constantly being discussed, constantly being a guy who they think Jaden Daniels is going to, finding opportunities opposite Terry McLaurin. Interesting matchup for them today. I like the stats you're spewing there. Simon, talk about the pick you're going to make.
Going with the Washington football team, Chad. Give me plus 9.5. I love this spot for this team. It's really all about kind of fading this Detroit team coming off an incredible season, but the hype has reached its peak level, in my opinion. This is way too much respect for a Lions team that just is not the same team as they were in the middle of the season, right? The injuries have caught up to them. You can say, well, they're healthy offensively. Agree. I mean, this is a nice spot for them offensively, but defensively, I do think this is the exact type of team that Jaden Daniels could succeed against. And we've seen the Lions struggle against running quarterbacks. It's one of their only really Achilles heels, especially defensively. They just do not have the linebackers to keep up with the type of player that Jaden Daniels is. So looking at this matchup on paper, I love it. And then we dive into the trends. Evan had an amazing trend that really jumped out to me in this one. It's basically road teams that missed the playoffs last year. They're 28-14 against the spread in this exact spot in the divisional round. So this is the kind of thing where people don't believe in these teams, right? And they tend to succeed and excel in this exact spot against usually the 1 or 2 seed. So the fact that, you look at the trends right now and all the money is basically pouring on this Lions team. We know the deal this weekend, Chad. All these money line parlays, everything is tied to these big favorites. There's got to be one that breaks the chain. There's got to be one major upset, and this one just jumps out to me. This is the exact scenario you need. This special, unique rookie that, he's not like most rookies, right? This guy played a lot of college football. I think we've seen that here in his NFL career that, final fourth quarter, he doesn't get tight. He stays cool, calm, and collective. And that's exactly what we have here is that this is a way too big of a spread, and we're always going to have the opportunity for a backdoor. Even if we're down 21, Chad, I won't be sweating. I'll keep reminding myself we're 2-3 and outs away on the Lions from getting back in this game on this Washington side. So to me, this is just an inflated number the books are trying to protect against their teasers, against the moneyline parlays, and we're getting 2 to 3 free points of value here. So I love this value right now on this Commanders team. This is way too big of a number.
It is a massive number, and the fact that it's just sort of stuck at 9.5 all week is kind of astonishing to me. It makes me a little worried because it means that there's as much wise guy money coming in on the Lions as there is on the Commanders.
There's 8.5s out there, brother. There's money coming in Washington. Don't you worry.
All right. Well, that's good. Then I better rush to get that 9.5. Washington Commanders, 5 straight games winning on the last play of the game. Not last 2 minutes, last play of the game. And they got out of there with some massive luck against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who, if not Baker Mayfield fumbling, I think they win that game by double digits. Raybon, this is an all-timer. All-timer for Raybon.
It's the playoffs, Chad. So I know you
playoffs.
Playoffs. John Bates, Boise State legend, under a half a receiving yard at minus 125. Talk about an inflated line. I think this should be maybe 0.1 at most. But he has no receiving yards in 11 of his 18 games this year. Now, Detroit, we know what they do. They play man coverage and they blitz. They do both of those at a top 6 rate. Bates has 2 catches against man this year, 1 against the blitz all year. And he plays 80% of his snaps as the inline tight end. So he is on the field early in the game. As Sean mentioned, this is kind of like a spot where you could see Washington trail a little more. So he might not get as many snaps as he typically does because Washington's had such an amazing season and has exceeded expectation. But even if he's on the field on these inline snaps, he is going to be tasked with helping against the blitz because that's his role in those situations. And that's why the Lions, if you look at their defensive numbers, they allow the fewest yards all season long to inline tight ends. Just 93 yards. They're the only team to allow less than 100, and they also allowed just 9 catches to inline tight ends all year. So this is one of those matchups where he could play a lot and still likely is going to goose egg. And he had a target last week. It was a 0 A-dot target, so he could have caught it and still gone under this number. So give me John Bates under half a receiving yard.
Listen, for tradition, for honor, for history's sake, I feel like I have to take John Bates under half a receiving yard just to give us something to root against every single time this guy is on the field today. My real pick is De'Ami Brown, who I'm pretty sure Amon-Ra St. Brown, if he could, would get on the field and guard himself,
Yeah.
because I'm pretty sure Diami Brown was drafted ahead of Amon-Ra St. Brown, and he's been chirping about it all week about how much he hates this guy in particular. I like all three of these. I'm 100% betting the Commanders. That's feeling more and more like a no-brainer, which means we're probably going to get screwed. But I'm going with Diami Brown in this particular segment. We love to fade the public. Let's take a look at where the majority of betting tickets are according to the Action Network app. For those who are new, the number of tickets generally represents who the public likes. The money percentages, also available in the app, indicate who the professionals like. No surprise, majority of tickets on Kansas City. Interesting, not a majority of tickets coming in on Detroit, but actually on Washington. We got a majority of tickets on the LA Rams as dogs against the Philadelphia Eagles, and a majority of tickets on the home underdog Buffalo Bills. We'll get to that game in a minute, but first, let's bring in Director of Research, Evan Abrams. He's going to make us smarter, hopefully feel better about the bets we are making today. Evan.
I don't know how I'm going to talk about this without on Bates, but I'm going to have to move on from that one. We've got three outdoor games and a total of 55.5, and that's kind of the story right now. So Houston and Kansas City, 23 degrees, 12 to 14 mile an hour winds, gust as high as 25 miles an hour. Supposedly we're getting worse winds in the first half. 41.5 the total there. That is the lowest playoff total for Patrick Mahomes in his career. Rams and Eagles is probably the next weather story. We're supposed to get snow, 3 to 5 inches or so, and it's supposed to happen in game, but only about 35 degrees, 8 to 11 mile an hour winds, gusts up to 20. Now the total was 44.5 there, down to 42.5. Now finally Baltimore and the Bills, 15 degrees there, going to be absolutely freezing, small wind. Now we're supposed to see maybe snow showers. Total hasn't budged really all week. The look ahead was 52.5, but since it opened 51.5, pretty much sat there. And then the interesting one, Washington, Detroit. So whether it's the spread tickets, which is basically 50-50, or the total tickets, which is basically 50-50 as well, total sitting at 55.5 indoors tonight. Total really hasn't moved at all. So that's kind of the back and forth there, because we're a huge weather slate today and tomorrow with Philly. Now, I'll talk about the big spreads for a second and let you guys keep going. So both Saturday games today have massive spreads. Favorites of over a touchdown, -7.5 or more, have won 18 consecutive playoff games outright, dating back to 2019-20. The last time was the Ravens against the Titans. That was the last big loss. That 18-game streak for big favorites in the playoffs is the longest at any point in the Super Bowl era. So we will see today if Houston and Washington can get it done. Now, speaking of them, they can also add their name to a little history. So since 2000, only 3 teams have won as underdogs in the wildcard round and then won in the divisional round as above a touchdown underdog. It happened in 2019-20 with Vrabel, Tannehill, and Derrick Henry and the Titans. They held Brady and Lamar to 25 combined points. And then in back-to-back years, it was Rex Ryan and Mark Sanchez. They beat Carson Palmer and Phillip Rivers. And then in 2010, they pretty much did the impossible, beat Peyton Manning and Tom Brady in back-to-back weeks. So we will see if Stroud or Jaden can get that done today, guys.
The New York Jets glory years of Rex Ryan and Mark Sanchez. That's what people remember. Listen, fans, do you want access to all of our experts' picks as soon as they happen? What about our pro prop projections powered by Sean Koerner and Chris Raybon? You get all that plus real-time bet and money percentages with Action Pro. Use code POWER20 and get $20 off the annual rate. POWER20 for $20 off. Let's get to the Rams and the Eagles. Not as much conversation about the Rams and the Eagles. Reminder, the fastest way to tail all of the picks from our experts today will be using the Quickslip links that are provided in the YouTube chat and in the episode description as the guys give out their picks. Koerner, give out a pick.
I got a tackle prop from this game, and this I think this is the first guy I gave a tackle prop to you for. It's Cam Curl of the Rams under 5.5 tackles plus assists. You can get it at -115 right now, but he's a safety for the Rams. And over the first half of the season, he was playing in the box a ton, closer to the line of scrimmage at a very high rate. Cleared this number in 4 of 7 games to open the season. However, since week 11, similar to the Ravens with Kyle Hamilton, the Rams tweaked their secondary and they had Curl line up as their primary deep safety, and it worked out well for their defense. They've been winning games, and he stayed under this in 6 of the last 8 games since moving to a more free safety role. Plus, the Eagles, they don't provide a ton of tackles to cornerback safeties. They tend to, run the ball a ton. So defensive linemen, linebackers typically get a boost against the Eagles. But the other thing going against Curl, and if you remember the first time I brought him up when he was with the Commanders, is due to the scorekeeper. The Rams scorekeeper is one of the most generous in the league. The Eagle is bottom half, so he's stingier, or she, I don't know who it is. But they're stingier when it comes out to dishing out assists. And Cam Curl relies a ton on assist. So it's not surprising to see he's failed to clear this number in 6 of 7 road games this season. He doesn't get the scorekeeper boost. And the only game that he cleared it was in Arizona, and they have the most generous scorekeeper in the league when it comes to dishing out assists. So there's a heavy, heavy scorekeeper angle here where I'm projecting him closer to 4.9 tackles with about a 62% chance to stay under 5.5 here.
Koerner, I cannot believe you don't know if the statistician tracking tackles at the link is a man or a woman. Your research really needs to step up its game. That's just really disappointing. Simon, make me feel better, because now I'm just disgusted by Koerner.
Going with this home team in Philadelphia. Give me the Eagles -6. And this feels like it's a line, Chad, that's disrespectful of this Eagles team. And it's all about the discourse this week about Jalen Hurts and the issues this team apparently has on offense. And the public has backed it up. Like you just talked about, the money, the tickets, it's coming in on this Rams team. This is a team that, people we talk about what upset might happen this week. This is the public upset. The public really does love this Rams team. And, they could come from the side of, well, the weather is the great equalizer, right? Between two great teams. Usually the weather kind of balances it out. I go the other way. I feel like this weather is really going to favor this Eagles team, especially the fact that they have these big guys up front. Like we talk all the time, the offense has the advantage always in these weather games because they know where they're going. Now you mix in the fact that the identity of this Rams team has shifted. They used to be a really heavy run team that would mix in the pass. Now they don't really know what they are. They've been imbalanced these last couple of weeks, and they kind of haven't found their identity. And on the flip side, this Eagles team has really leaned into what makes them so great. I mean, there's a reason they've won so many games in a row, and the fact that they ended up being the 2 seed was just because we all know it's Saquon Barkley. This is his team. As much of respect I give to Hurts, and he is a key piece of this team, it is all about Saquon, and this is the perfect spot to back Saquon against this matchup against this Rams team. It's an undersized front. They are great at pass rush. They're not good at stopping their run. We've seen that's been the biggest difference to me, seeing what's happened when Aaron Donald left. The Rams just aren't strong up the middle. Like that was their key for 10 years. It was they were dominant up the middle. Teams would have to go on the outside to run against them. That's long gone. You could go back and watch that Rams game, the run blocking scheme. It was all about motion with the guards and the center and getting to that second level. And it's over against this Rams team. They just don't have the linebackers. They don't have the guys in the middle to kind of stop this type of run team for this Eagles team. And now we factor in the fact that Hurts actually thrives in these exact kind of spots. When he plays against teams above 500, he's 15-7 against the spread, Chad. So it's like, okay, he might struggle against bad teams because he kind of plays down to their level. When he's playing against good teams in tough spots, he always steps up. And this is the exact spot you expect him to bounce back. So just looking at this matchup across the board, we already know the Eagles have the #1 defense in football. That's a great match for them against a Rams team that has struggled these last 4 or 5 weeks against, not great defenses, in my opinion. So the fact they're now playing a great defense on the road in the elements, it all just adds up to this Eagles team just rolling this team. So I love this -6. I mean, it's threw a little bit on the adjusted line up to -10, Chad. So I am big into this Eagles team right here in this spot.
Ooh, I like that idea. This is the one line all week that has felt off. Like you could see how the other games can go either way. I've been surprised this line has held fast at 6 the entire week. Raybon, can you knock me off of the Eagles -6?
Let's go with the first half under in this game. And, I agree with everything Simon said. I think, the Eagles are going to run the ball. They're not going to be kind of swayed by the public opinion and feel like they have to prove everybody right, especially after they did that already against Pittsburgh when, everybody was down on Hurts in the passing game. And then, they needed to throw in that game because Pittsburgh actually stopped the run. But in this matchup, they're going to stick with the run because it's not just a talent advantage, it is a size advantage. And, if they're able to just grind out 4 or 5 yards, they're going to do that. They've said as much. They just don't want to turn the ball over. They feel like they have the best defense in the league. And that's why you see them start, slower in first halves because they just run the ball and they're averaging, 2.3 points less per game. In the first half, they're at just over 12 points per game. In the second half, they're almost at 15 points per game because, if they have to come from behind, they'll throw it more. If not, Saquon is better as the game goes on, wherein defense is down. And then you have the Rams on the other side, and they're coming off one of their best, first half performances of the year last week against the Vikings, but it's been a struggle for them in the first half for most of the year. I believe they only have 3 opening drive touchdowns all year. And now you're going against Sean McVay's kryptonite in Vic Fangio. And Vic Fangio always has, kind of some schemes in his back pocket for Sean McVay. It's really been a struggle for McVay's offenses to get going against Fangio. So I think what's going to happen is you're going to see a lot of Kyren Williams for the Rams. So I think both teams are going to want to run it early because Kyren had his second longest run of the year in this first matchup, but they kind of went away from him because he fumbled early and they got behind. But if you look at the last 2 cold weather, outdoor games, not even just straight cold, just outdoor games, they had that game against the Jets, which was windy, and they had the game against the Niners, which was rainy. It was a very slow starting first half in both of those games. Really just a slow game overall, but Kyren Williams ended up carrying the ball an average of 26 times in those 2 games, 23 in each, and a lot early. So that's going to just bleed the clock, especially if the Eagles are running it with Saquon on the other side as well. So give me the first half under in the Rams-Eagles.
100% agree. Love the idea. I'm going fly, Eagles, fly. Give me the Eagles -6. I've been on this one all week. Simon and I have talked about it all week on the Favorites podcast. Favorite play of the week. Just jinxed it. I don't care. Just the way it's going to be. Let's talk about my favorite stat in the Action Network universe. That is our luck rankings, taking all the noise out of randomness, giving us a more accurate picture of a team's performance. Let's welcome in Dr. Nick Giffen. What do you got, brother?
Yeah, Chad. Well, after the luck under last week hit, we're going back to the luck under in Baltimore versus Buffalo. This one has a luck total of -8.6. That's crazy for this time of year. Usually luck kind of regresses to the mean and balances out. All the other games are basically 0. This is -8.6. This is a massive luck under. Personally, though, I make this like right around 51, maybe just a shade under 51 without Zay Flowers. And with 51, such a key number in the NFL, you absolutely want to get the hook here if you're going to take the under 51.5. Luck unders the last 7 years, 24-8 in the playoffs. That's 75%, Chad, in 32-game sample size there over the last 7 years since we've been keeping track of luck totals. Also, you probably can wait for closer to game time, right? The public loves betting these overs, especially with 2 big name teams like Baltimore, Buffalo, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. We saw it last week. Buffalo and Denver just got bet up and up and up as it got close to kickoff. It was like 46.5, 47 midweek. And by kickoff, there were some 49.5s out there. So I think you could wait again, even without Zay Flowers. I think this total at 51.5, maybe sprinkle some on it at 51.5 to protect yourself in case it pushes down to 51 on Zay Flowers being confirmed out, whereas he's doubtful right now. But, come kickoff, if you see it go up to 52, even up to 52.5, don't mind betting it again. And you also may want to take the first half under here. Baltimore, especially in the second half has had a lot of teams come back on them, some backdoor covers, playing some really high scoring second halves, especially, think about the Bengals game this year, and then also went to overtime. This game has some pretty high overtime potential. So maybe think about the first half under as well.
Total in the first half is, depending on where you look, it's 24 and a half. I see at least 125 and a half out there, but consensus right now, 24 and a half. All right, Dr. Nick, we're getting into the biggest game of the weekend, Sunday night, prime time. Baltimore visiting Buffalo. The line on this game is 1.5. The total, as Dr. Nick pointed out, 51 and a half. The line is moved. By the way, Sunday night, this line opened Baltimore as a 2-point underdog. It is flipped 3.5 points. Baltimore is now a 1.5 point favorite. Let's get to it. Sean Koerner, talk to me.
Yeah, so this is game of the week, battle between the two MVP candidates. I can't think of a better way to sweat this game than with a Mac Hollins under. So give me Mac Hollins under 1.5 receptions at -115. Last week was just the second game since the Amari Cooper trade where all Bills pass catchers were healthy. And to no surprise, Mac Hollins' playing time took quite a big of a hit. His routes run rate was 20% lower than his season average. Curtis Samuel had a great game too. So I think Curtis Samuel's going to continue seeing snaps here at the expense of Hollins as well. So I think his playing time should stay in that range here. And his 12% target rate is by far the lowest of their wide receiver room. So I'm only projecting him to get around 2 targets in this game. And the targets he tends to get are downfield, low percentage deep shots. So his average depth of the target has been 13 yards downfield this year. And since the Ravens started using Kyle Hamilton more as deep safety in week 11, their pass defense has been much, much better. They've only allowed a 38% completion percentage to wide receivers on pass attempts, 13 yards plus downfield. So I'm projecting Hollins with about a 60% chance to stay under 1.5 receptions. I prefer this market because, again, if he does get a catch, it could go for 20 plus yards. So I'm stay away for his receiving yard prop, but instead fading his under 1.5 catches here.
Is there a total on Mac Hollins' level of name recognition plummeting if TikTok goes away? Because the guy's TikToks about home improvement and home maintenance are truly phenomenal. Simon, what's your play?
Going with another second half play, Chad. I'm all in on second half plays this week. Give me the Bills second half. This is just really about Josh Allen. I know I've talked about it all season how I just can't get over how dominant he's been the second half. It's continued. I mean, this guy has now covered 11 straight second half spreads. 11 straight. That's insane. He's 15-2 on the season against the spread in the second half. And Nick kind of hinted at it, like the Ravens, they're not good in the second half. Even Pittsburgh almost, the dead in the water Pittsburgh, Russell Wilson almost mounted a comeback against this Ravens team the second half. So to me, it's kind of the weakness of the Ravens in their second half. They do not make great adjustments. And on the flip side, the Bills are the best second half adjustment team in all of football, not just offensively, defensively as well. They make great second half adjustments. So the fact that you can still get a plus number right now on this just is too much disrespect to Josh Allen, this team right now, and this Bills team. And, we've already talked a little bit about the weather, right? This is another game that's going to get colder as the game goes along. And, Bills fans know this. This is their advantage of the home field. Josh Allen at home, these type of scenarios, he doesn't get colder as the game goes along. He gets hotter. He gets better. He gets stronger. So the fact that you can still get a plus number to me is great value. And, we know the trends. The trends back up here. The fact that you want to fade the Ravens second half. You want to take them first half, I totally get it. But second half, it's got to be Bills here, and it's got to be Bills money.
All right. Chris Raybon, what is your play? The final play for the divisional round weekend.
Well, I could think of a better way to watch this great game with 2 MVPs than sweating the Mac Hollins unders, just sweating everybody doing everything, not because I'm going with the under 51.5. I love this. Zay Flowers, that just kind of guarantees that you're going to see a run heavy personnel type of package from Baltimore in almost every snap. And, Lamar Jackson, I think he's unquestionably should be the MVP. I don't even think it's close, but like the type of season he's having, but Baltimore, when they get to the playoffs, they want to run the ball. That's why they got Derrick Henry. Remember last year, they're playing the Chiefs. It was right in front of them, but for some reason, they didn't hand the ball off enough, and it cost them because, they were trusting their rookie wide receiver in Flowers, and he fumbled at 1-inch line, all these things. So I don't think you're going to see a lot of these young receivers without Zay Flowers. I think you're going to see just a lot of heavy from Baltimore, and they're going to want to control the ball because they don't want Josh Allen on the field too much. And the Bills want to do the same thing. I think everyone's kind of looking at the fact that the Ravens play this, the league best run defense, which they do, and saying, okay, Buffalo, this is it. They're going pass heavy. This is why they got Amari Cooper. But people don't realize that Buffalo has the most snaps on offense all season of any team with a 6th offensive lineman on the field. So they have different ways that they can run on Baltimore and kind of, employ a run heavy, potentially ball control type of game plan too, because that's what they want to do. So you got both teams kind of trying to do the same thing that are usually in situations where they're just dominating the other side. And if you look at Baltimore's history, I mean, it just plays out exactly like that. They've had 7 games where Lamar has started for them in the playoffs. They still have not had one of those totals go over. They have 1 push. That's it. 6 unders, 1 push. Both of his road playoff starts, the total was 50 or more. And both times the under hit by an average of 25 points per game. Never got out of the 30s in either of those spots, including one of them was against the Buffalo Bills. And as Nick mentioned, this is a luck under. They've hit at an extremely high rate, about 75%. And just postseason unders in general, 51 or more, like that key number. If you go all the way back to 2003, 51 or more outdoors in the postseason, 20 and 10, 67%. Small sample, but pretty indicative of what we would expect in this spot. This is playoff football, 2 run heavy teams. Give me the under.
Yeah, it's a little surprising this line hasn't moved given the weather reports that everyone has been seeing, that people have been aware of for more than a week. 2 teams highly ranked in terms of average time of possession, 2 teams that are top 5 in terms of the amount of rushing plays as a percentage of their overall plays. These are running teams. Forget about the MVP conversation. I agree with Raybon. Lamar should be the MVP, but this is not going to be a quarterback glamour game. These teams like to keep the ball on the ground. Give me the under 51.5 in the Baltimore Ravens, Buffalo Bills. The payout, if you guys want to play this Sunday night game as an SGP, you want to play the Mac Hollins under, you want to play the Bills second half, you want to play the total under 51.5. The SGP odds on that plus 460 at DraftKings right now. This has been Convince Me for Divisional Round weekend. Wishing everybody good luck. Stay tuned for the touchdown show.
Thank you, Chad, and the whole Convince Me crew, and welcome to the touchdown show for NFL Divisional Round weekend. I am Gilles Gallant with the Action Network, along with Brian Matthews, and we've got Dr. Nick Giffen joining us again this week. He was red hot last week. He had Dallas Goedert at plus 350 and got Ty Johnson at plus 650 last week. He's looking to build on that again here in the divisional round. So here's how it works. The 3 of us, we're going to go through all 4 divisional round games. We're going to pick off our favorite touchdown bets of the weekend. And reminder, every touchdown bet that we give out today, it's going to be in the YouTube description or in the chat as well. So if you want to be able to tail those bets, there are quick slips there that will take you directly to the sports book so you can bet that and be able to tail if you want to take that touchdown bet. All right, let's start off, gentlemen. Saturday, Texans-Chiefs. And we are seeing the Chiefs as big home favorites at 8.5 with a total of 41.5. And right at the top of the list, you've got Taylor Swift's boyfriend, Travis Kelce, at plus 155, favored the most to score a touchdown, followed by Joe Mixon at plus 160. Then you're starting to see the Kansas City Chiefs running backs, Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt, and between plus 165 and plus 180. Nico Collins at plus 190, Xavier Worthy at plus 215. And starting to see the rest of that top 10 with DeAndre Hopkins, Marquise Brown, Dalton Schultz, and rounding out that top 10 is Patrick Mahomes at plus 550, who coincidentally only had one rushing touchdown this year, but it was actually in the week 16 matchup against the Texans. So, gentlemen, I'm going to start us off, and a big theme about this show this year is we've been betting a lot on rookies and having a lot of success. I think we need to keep doing that. I think I'm going to take Xavier Worthy for an anytime touchdown. I bet it at plus 220. It's around plus 215 right now. Now, obviously, they are different players, but I'm kind of getting Rashee Rice vibes from Xavier Worthy now because of just how involved he is in the offense. He led all Chiefs wide receivers this season, 17 red zone targets, all Kansas City pass catchers with 4 receiving touchdowns inside the 10-yard line, 6 red zone carries as well. So you're starting to see like some jet sweeps. He has 3 rushing touchdowns as well. And the Texans, pretty good against the pass, especially limiting completions, but they did allow 21 touchdowns to wide receivers this year, so they can be beaten on that front. And Worthy has 5 touchdowns versus zone defenses this year. Texans play a lot of zone, and when they did play in week 16, he did score. I just will put this caveat out there that Xavier Worthy is probably one of the more frustrating touchdown bets to make. I've bet on him a couple of times this year, and in that game specifically against the Texans, he probably should have had 2 touchdowns because there was a couple of times he had a drop. He's got Quentin Johnsonitis a little bit. So just be careful with Xavier Worthy, set your expectations. But I think in this game, he is the best value at plus 220. And B-Matt, you're going to collab on this bet with me. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we talked early in the week on who we were liking, and I said I like Nico Collins at 200, but if he goes up, I might like him a little more. And mentioned that Xavier Worthy was a guy like, I'm joining you. This is a collab here. Look, I just love the fact that he's gone over, he's got 5+ receptions in his last 5 games. I think the last 2, he's got 13 receptions. He's getting targeted at an extremely high rate. And like you said, there's always the added element of the rush. So yeah, I just think it's a great spot. It's a guy that they really like. They lowered his ADOT, got him more involved in the offense, and are getting more creative in how they're getting him the ball. So I really like Xavier Worthy today.
I don't know if it's troubling or not. I looked up on Grok, the AI on Twitter, just before we came on the show, and I just looked up anytime touchdown bet, and Xavier Worthy was the first pick. So I still like the bet. I'm just saying he's a very popular pick today. So a lot of people are probably going to be on Xavier Worthy to score a touchdown. Now, Nick, it is your turn. Who are you betting for Texans-Chiefs?
Yeah, well, I'm going to go with 2 separate Texans players in the running game. First, I'm going to take Joe Mixon. He's about plus 160 right now. And, full caveat here as well. This is an awful matchup for Joe Mixon. He's injured, but I think that's what's causing this price to kind of bloat all the way to plus 160 for Joe Mixon. Look, he's still the bell cow back. If he's going to play, he's going to be the bell cow, and especially inside the 5-yard line, he's going to be the guy that gets the looks first. Texans have a depleted wide receiver room. They'll look to Joe Mixon. They'll look to Nico Collins, who will probably be double teamed in the red zone. And maybe, they look to Dalton Schultz, but very often I think they're going to look to Joe Mixon inside the 5-yard line. And if he's going to be injured, well, where will they want him to play if he's going to be limited? They'll want him to get the important carries, which would be those inside the red zone, inside the 5-yard line. So I still like Joe Mixon's touchdown chances. Not going full unit on this one, just 3/4 of a unit for Joe Mixon. But on the other side, to kind of complete the Houston Texans running situation, I'm going to take CJ Stroud. He's been bouncing around between 13-1 and 15-1. I think right now he's at 14-1. Look, he is going up against the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Kansas City defense has allowed the most quarterback scrambles in the NFL. They've also allowed the tied 8th most touchdowns on the ground to quarterbacks. And the reason Kansas City allows a ton of scrambles, they play a lot of 2 high safeties. So 1 less man in the box, and they use a lot of man coverage. And what happens when you're in man coverage? You're lined up facing your man, and then you're turning your back to the quarterback as you're covering him down the field. That's optimal situation for quarterback scrambling. We saw CJ Stroud scramble against Kansas City for 23 yards earlier in their meetings, which is on the higher side for CJ Stroud rushing this year. So I think there's a chance he could scramble for a touchdown and maybe even call his own number if Mixon's ailing in the red zone.
I love this angle. I love being able to take the entire Texans backfield because I'm not sure how much work Damian Pierce is going to get or Daria Ugbanwale, for example. So I think those two are going to be heavily involved, especially. And then, of course, you could get Stroud even on a quarterback sneak. Like he had 3 rushing touchdowns last season. He technically scrambled more this year, but no rushing touchdowns. So really like the odds here, especially at 14-1. So Nick has taken his unit and he's going to put 0.75 of a unit on Joe Mixon at plus 160 and putting a quarter unit on CJ Stroud. And BMAT and I are going to be on Xavier Worthy for an anytime touchdown. So that is Texans-Chiefs. Now let's move to the nightcap on Saturday. That would be Commanders-Lions. Lions, huge home favorites of 9.5 with a huge total at 55.5. And when you look at these touchdown odds, it gets pretty greasy at the top. You've got Jahmyr Gibbs at minus 210, followed by David Montgomery, who hasn't played in a few weeks. He's at minus 150. Then you've got Amon-Ra St. Brown at minus 115. So that's 3 guys off the top right now at minus odds. Then you've got Terry McLaurin at plus 135, Jamison Williams at plus 135, Sam Laporta down to plus 155. So that's 6 guys now below plus 200 to score a touchdown in this game. Then rounding out the rest of the top 10 is actually Commanders, Brian Robinson Jr., Jaden Daniels, Austin Eckler, and Zach Ertz at plus 300 to round out this top 10. So without kind of spoiling it, the touchdown odds are pretty tough in this game to find value. B-Matt, I know that you're probably not loving the odds, but is there a guy that you still want to bet on to score a touchdown in this game?
Yeah, so this is probably the game that I'm least enthused about the odds with. Like you said, I mean, it's just tough to find value when the entire half of the board, like the major skill position guys, are all, minus 115 or plus 150 and under. And especially with the playoffs, we've seen that like we're not getting shootouts like so far. We're not getting. It might have a high projected total, but a lot of other games have and didn't quite get near where they're at.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm going to go Sammy ball game. I just think it's a great matchup for Sam Laporta, and I'm going to put a unit on it. I'm not, I didn't want to go too far down. I was looking at De'Ami Brown, and I'm like, you know what? Look, I like Sam Laporta. It's a good matchup. The Lions are at home. I almost went first half touchdown score, as you guys have, pointed out over time. But we're going to go Sam Laporta anytime touchdown at plus 155. Not in love with the value, but I do really love the matchup.
Well, I mean, Sam Laporta, he's going to be involved. Which again, it's just the odds. If you don't, it's okay to say no, kind of thing. It's okay to pass on the game. So, but Sam Laporta, I do think is a very solid look, and especially if you're looking for extra boosted value as well, you could look at the first half touchdown. But at plus 155, that is what B-Matt is taking. I'm going to take the tight end on the other side. I'm going to take Zach Ertz at 3-1. Look. 7 receiving touchdowns this year. On the Commanders side, he led the Commanders with 21 red zone targets. A lot of those were actually more end zone targets. And then 10 targets inside the 10-yard line. That was top 8 in the NFL to finish the season. Now, Lions obviously being huge favorites, play man coverage at a top rate in the NFL. I do think the Commanders are going to score, but again, I'm not thinking that they're going to put up like 24 points again, like against the Bucs last week. I trust Ertz in this spot. But Nick, I have to ask you this question. Now, you may not love the touchdown odds in this game, but I just want to know, how do you feel about your Commanders pulling off an upset today?
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting one. So I don't have a pick in this game. Like you guys have talked about, the odds are just so tight. And I'm just going to pass. I'm just going to be a fan of my Washington Commanders. Hopefully they'll pull something off. I'm not expecting them to, but it is a rematch of the last time the Commanders went to the Super Bowl. They faced the Detroit Lions in the NFC Championship game, I believe it was, or the divisional round. I think it might have been the divisional round. But either way, that was the last time my Commanders went to the Super Bowl. They had to go through Detroit, so they have to do that again. But no touchdown bets for me. I'm just going to be a fan and enjoy this one. And look, there's the total's like 55.5. There's going to be touchdowns, right? It's just, you have to factor in the fact that books know that, and they're pricing accordingly. They're making guys minus 250, right? Like Jahmyr Gibbs minus 250. That's just crazy. That's just stuff you can't bet on. So I'm just going to pass and be a fan.
Well, I think the counter to that, Nick, what you could do is you could join the Action Network Discord and watch Bet What Happens Live when that comes on. And then at halftime, you could be able to find some value perhaps in the touchdown market or other player prop markets where you've been pretty successful. So that is probably a way that if you're not liking the pregame books or pregame bets rather, you could wait, bet live, go to halftime, join Nick, find some good bets that way. So that's the angle here. So Nick is going to pass. I'm going to take Zach Ertz, and BMAT is going to be on Sam Laporta. But looking at these two games, guys, I still want to do a parlay of some sort for touchdown odds. So Nick and BMAT, I just want to know, what do you think? Let's add Xavier Worthy, I think, as the first leg for this. But I know, again, we didn't love the value, but I was kind of toying with whether or not I was going to take Zach Ertz or Jaden Daniels in this game, especially with Jaden Daniels' scrambling ability and playing a lot of man coverage, as Nick has described. So what if we paired those two together for an anytime touchdown parlay for Saturday? Because right now, when I'm looking at these two, Bet365, you could parlay these two touchdown scores at plus 725. And for our Action Pro projections, which have anytime touchdown edge projections, both are showing the highest projection edge with Action Pro right now to score a touchdown in those games with Xavier Worthy and Jaden Daniels. So that's what we're going to do, parlaying those two at plus 725. So before we get to Sunday games, if you want access to all of Action Pro projections, make sure to sign up for our annual subscription that is currently on sale. Access includes exclusive player prop picks from Sean Koerner and other members of the Action Analytics team. And you'll also get access to exclusive expert articles, our best spread, money line, and total bets, along with real ticket and money percentages. To sign up, visit actionnetwork.com/pro today. Use code POWER20 at sign up. One more time, that's POWER20 at sign up for $20 off. All right, it is time to look at the Sunday games. We're going right to Rams, Eagles. Eagles 6-point home favorites with a total of 43.5. Some potential weather coming to Philadelphia as well. And right at the top, you've got Saquon Barkley at minus 170 and Jalen Hurts at minus 115, the rushing attack for this Eagles team. And you're seeing Kyron Williams, minus 105, for somebody who scored as many touchdowns as Saquon, it's the fact that it's pretty telling of where you're seeing his odds now as well. And then you've got A.J. Brown at plus 150. He hasn't looked right so far throughout the playoffs, reading a book on the sideline. Puka Nacua at plus 155. Then you start to see the odds climb up. You've got Devontae Smith. You've got Cooper Kupp, Dallas Goedert, Demarcus Robinson, and Tyler Higbee, who looked pretty good last week, left the game, but is back this week. He's at 5-1 to round out that top 10. Now, B-Man, I didn't want to spoil it here, but the two guys off the top, Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts, pretty big favorites to score a touchdown, but you found an angle to be able to get some plus value on that. What are you looking at?
Yeah, so I look at this matchup, and it's about as bad of a matchup as the Rams could have gotten. Maybe in the entire, I just don't think that there's a team that they match up worse with. And I think it's going to be it's going to be tough sledding for them moving the ball. There might be some bad weather, as we're hearing. And so, when you talk about, the Eagles, you go, all right, look, if they're going to score a rushing touchdown, we pretty much know it's going to be either Jalen Hurts tush push or Saquon Barkley is scored outside of the 2-yard line. And so I'm going to try and go with a different angle here because I didn't love too many touchdown scorers in this game. I would lean more toward the Eagles side. But I'm going to go with, on FanDuel, if you go to the touchdown score props, you can go either player to score first. I'm going to go Saquon Barkley or Jalen Hurts at plus 180. And so I don't think I'm going to go a unit there. I don't think it needs much explanation. Again, I'm kind of banking on the Rams struggling. So I'm in my head kind of predicting, all right, we're going to get an Eagles touchdown first. And, it feels like when you're looking at the Eagles and scoring a touchdown in bad weather games, you feel, okay, well, I feel pretty decent that one of those two might get a shot. So we're going to go either player to score at plus 180 for one unit.
Well, I think the one thing, too, that really helps with this kind of bet, because we kind of know the Eagles' MO as far as how they like to operate offensively. But if you were to be like, I think Saquon Barkley is going to score the first touchdown, very high chance you could get vultured by Jalen Hurts on a tush push.
100%.
So I think to take that out of the equation, to be able to feel a little bit better about that, I think that is a very smart move. So Saquon Barkley or Jalen Hurts to score the first touchdown of the game at plus 180. BMAC grabbed that at FanDuel. Nick, you're on an Eagle as well. Who do you like to score a touchdown in this game?
Yeah, actually, B-Matt, I love that angle. So I'll probably be on that, tailing that with you. But
Yeah.
I'm going to go to a different eagle. I'm going to take Devontae Smith and get that about plus 210. Look, this is an interesting spot because normally when, we pick a touchdown guy, a scorer, we're like, well, we like this guy because he destroys man coverage and this team plays man coverage at a really high rate or something. Well, we don't have that here with the Rams. The Rams are like your league average NFL defense in terms of schematics, right? They're the team that deviates the least from league average in things like two high safety versus single high safety. They deviate the least from league average in like cover 2 or cover 3 or a cover 4 or man coverage, all those things. Deviate the least from league average in blitz rates and pressure rates. When you take everything as a total, they're kind of just your league average defense. And they've been playing that way, especially in the second half of the season. Early in the season, they struggled with some injuries. Second half of the season, when they got healthy, they've been like your league average defense. Relatively neutral defensive back matchups you've got here. So there's no like angle on Devontae Smith other than when everything's right around average, you just got to take the guy you're showing the most projection value on. And I've got Devontae Smith. I'm showing the most projection value on him. He has 8 touchdowns in 13 games this year. I mean, that means he's scored a touchdown. I know he's had a couple 2-touchdown games, but he scored a touchdown in like half the games. That's 2 plus 210, just too long right there for Devontae Smith. I'm good playing this down to around plus 200, maybe a touch shorter.
Well, especially because AJ Brown just hasn't looked right. And forget about the book thing on the sideline, just as far as how he's looked running routes and is separate. It's just not the same AJ Brown that we're used to, or even the one who played when they played earlier this year in LA, because he scored a touchdown in that game. And Devontae actually didn't play in that game, by the way. So you were on Dallas Goedert last week. Now you're pivoting over to Devontae Smith to score a touchdown on this Rams secondary. So that is Nick's pick. He's going to take Devontae Smith, and BMAT is on the Saquon Barkley or Jalen Hurts to score the first touchdown of the game. I'm going to go against projections. I'm going to try to catch the fallen knife. I'm going to just do something that's probably completely irresponsible, but I have to do this because I love the odds on him right now at this price. And that's Cooper Kupp to score a touchdown. He's around plus 290. And again, this is probably the highest touchdown odds he has had in a game. Pre-Stafford for sure. And I think the one thing too, and we talked about this just coming before the show, that Cooper Kupp's stock is kind of at an all-time low, just the separation scores and everything. He just hasn't looked as good, but I think that this is still a pretty solid matchup for him because, again, just playing man and zone defenses, Nick kind of alluded to that. Cooper Kupp has kind of been pretty successful against both this year. 25% target share. He's got 2 touchdowns versus man, 2 touchdowns versus zone. They're kind of nearly identical, but obviously not as good as the offensive player of the year metrics that we were seeing maybe from a couple years ago. And for what it's worth, I mean, he did score on the Eagles earlier this season in garbage time. It was 11 targets with 8 catches. He was actually second on the team in targets, though, because Puka Nacua has just been a beast in this offense as far as target share goes. But I think that the Eagles are going to try to do everything they can to negate Puka Nacua's ability. So I think Cooper Kupp could have a little bit more volume going his way. And again, at that price, I do like it here at plus 290. So I'm going to take Cooper Kupp at plus 290. Nick is on Devontae Smith, and BMAT is on Saquon or Jalen Hurts to score the first touchdown of the game. All right, now let's move to the battle of MVPs. Ravens versus Bills being played in Buffalo. Ravens minus 1.5 road favorites now against the Bills with a total of 51.5. And then, of course, for touchdown odds, it would be silly if anybody else but King Henry is at the top. King Henry minus 210 to score a touchdown on this Bills defense. Then we see plus odds. James Cook at plus 105, Josh Allen at plus 110, Rashad Bateman plus 170, Mark Andrews at plus 175. Zay Flowers is there. He's doubtful. He's likely not playing anyway. So Lamar Jackson plus 190, Khalil Shakir plus 210. And then rounding out the top 10, Keon Coleman at plus 275 and Isaiah Likely at plus 280. Now, Nick, you're going to start us off on this game, and you are looking at 2 Ravens. Who do you like?
Yeah, we're going to go with this, angle of Zay Flowers. He's doubtful, unlikely to play. So I'm going to take Rashad Bateman, and I'm going to take Mark Andrews for half a unit each. They're both right around plus 170, plus 175. Now, full disclosure, I haven't bet them yet. I'm waiting on official confirmation on Zay Flowers being out. I know he's doubtful, but you never know. Maybe he'll wake up and suddenly the knee will feel like perfectly fine and normal. So the human body's a weird thing. So I haven't bet it yet. These are the two guys I'm eyeing. For Rashad Bateman, he has 5 touchdowns this year versus zone defense. The Bills lean towards a zone heavy defense. He's also been better versus 2 high safety looks, 1.8 yards per carry versus slightly less than 1.6, not per carry, per route run versus slightly less than 1.6 yards per route run versus single high safety looks. So schematically, this fits Rashad Bateman very well. And, he becomes the de facto wide receiver 1 with Zay Flowers out. On the other side, Mark Andrews, he gets a great matchup as well. 2.4 yards per route run this year versus zone coverage, and a Bills team that allows the 3rd highest adjusted net yards per attempt to the slot out of the 8 opposing defenses, the 8 teams that are playing this weekend. So, Mark Andrews lines up in the slot a ton and will be even more with Zay Flowers out. So I'm just looking for one of these two guys to hit, right? If I hit one of these two, I'll lose the half unit on one, but I'll win the half unit on the other, and I'll win the TD bet on the one that hits. And you never know, you could always hit both as well.
I think it's just such a shift when you think about the scope of the full season, that there were times in the first 5 to 6 games of the year that you could get Rashad Bateman and Mark Andrews over 3-1 odds to score a touchdown. Yeah. And now just the way that this offense is clicking going into the playoffs at plus 170 and plus 175, very solid prices there now for Rashad Bateman and Mark Andrews, who are now instrumental in this offense. B-Matt, we're going to have to do another collab because on the Bills side, this one I got really excited about, and I was actually kind of surprised at the odds, but I think this is why they brought him here. I'm taking Amari Cooper to score a touchdown at 5-1. You're going to collab on this bet with me. Only 2 receiving touchdowns with Buffalo, but again, I alluded to this. I think this is kind of the matchup of why they brought him here, especially because the Ravens, they play pretty aggressive man coverage, and based on snaps played with the Bills and with the Ravens, Cooper is likely going to be matched up with cornerback Brandon Stephens, and Brandon Stephens has allowed 5 touchdowns in coverage this year. That was the most of any NFL cornerback. And Cooper, when you look at his past metrics, like how he does against man defenses, either with Cleveland or with Dallas, has done pretty well. Again, some of the quarterback matchups might have skewed those down a little bit with having like Deshaun Watson as your quarterback. But and then with the Ravens run defense being so strong and potentially getting ahead, I think the Bills passing game is where I would lean to for touchdown scores on the Buffalo side. So B-Matt, what do you think? Amari Cooper, why do you like him?
Yeah, look, I just think this is one of those matchups. To me, it's a buy low spot. You're getting a veteran who at this time of the year, I think is going to be a little more, I think he's a guy, like you said, you don't trade and bring him in for nothing. I think he's had the acclimation period of getting into the offense. I don't think he's, going to go absolutely nuclear. I think Shakir is kind of that safety net for Josh Allen. But I think when you get down into the end, that part of the field, the red zone, I think Amari Cooper's a guy who's proven that he can do it. He's done it before. And I think that at plus 500, it's a hard number to refuse. I will say Isaiah likely was going to be my initial pick at plus 4. I think it was plus 400. But that came plummeting down to plus 280. And so I said, you know what? I did like this. I liked Andrews as well. So I said, we're going to go with the Cooper angle. And I will add, it's the Cooper theme today, because I did tail you and logged it in the app on Cooper Cup, even though, so we're both trying to catch the fallen knife today.
Yeah, the hanging with Mr. Cooper parlay. All right. So
you're gonna have to deal with Cooper DeJean in that one.
And I thought I said
Cooper DeJean with an interception. We should add that too. All right, so I still want to do a parlay for the Sunday games though before we get out of here. And look, Mark Andrews, I know that like right now he's only plus 175. I think that if we're picking a leg from that game, that's who I would pick for the leg for an anytime touchdown. But Nick made a great point about Devontae Smith. I think we should pair those two together, B-Matt. Devontae Smith, been a favorite of the touchdown show for many weeks. And then, of course, Mark Andrews is somebody that has scored up until that playoff game. I believe he had a touchdown in like 8 straight games. So Mark Andrews and Devontae Smith, when you parlay those together at FanDuel, you're getting around plus 730 for those two to each score a touchdown. So I love these odds, especially now that Zay Flowers is Isaiah Likely has gone down, because I think that Zay Flowers news was kind of coming out where he was around 4-1. And then once that Zay Flowers news came out, that pretty much plummeted and steamed the odds. So plus 730 is going to be the second parlay that we're doing with Devontae Smith for an anytime touchdown with Mark Andrews. So, gentlemen, that's all for today. Touchdown Show. We're going to be back here for Championship Sunday for the AFC and NFC title game. That starts on Sunday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, live right after Convince Me during the Action Network Power Hour. And of course, if you missed the show, you want to get our picks, you can check out the YouTube description, and in the chat, we have quick slips for every touchdown bet that we've given out today on the show. It'll take you right to the sports book to bet that touchdown prop. And also, you can just download the Action app. All of our touchdown bets are tracked there. You can get them as well as soon as we bet them with pick notifications, and they'll have quick slip links as well to take you to the sports book. So I want to thank you again for joining us for the Touchdown Show for the Divisional Round. Bonne chance.